To welcome in retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Tygart. General Tygart, always great to see you. I do want to apologize if we have to interrupt you again as we take this live look. We are waiting on that press conference to start. But until it does, I mean, compare what the U.S. should be pushing for in these talks versus what Israel is pushing for.
Nicole, I think it's interesting that the president of the United States spent a large portion of last week socializing most of those 21 points with Arab and Muslim leaders. That means that he's expended credibility and political capital to create this plan that now is socialized and coordinated. And he is spending the time today pitching that to the prime minister, who spent time yesterday with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner as well. And I think there probably are three sticking points to that plan that we'll see if they're able to overcome today. One of them is the possibility of a future for a Palestinian state. The second one is an active role of the Palestinian Authority in the way forward in Gaza. And the third is a prohibition against annexation in Gaza, but that probably extends to the West Bank as well. And we'll see if President Trump is able to convince Netanyahu to overlook some of those concerns for all of the strategic benefits of accepting this 21-point plan.
And General, how important is the actual relationship between these two leaders, between Trump and Netanyahu, and how has it changed in these now more than 8 months of the president's second term?
Nicole, it's clear that there is a large bond of trust between these two leaders. And I think part of the reason that the president has stuck with Netanyahu is because of that relationship, but also because of the strategic importance of our relationship with Israel. But it's getting to the point, especially with plummeting reputation ratings of Israel around the world, but specifically in the United States, that President Trump is going to take a little bit more of a harsh tone with Netanyahu in order to get him over the hump to accept this deal. And I realize that the prime minister is probably weighing upsetting the president of the United States with upsetting some of the more conservative members of his governing coalition. And we'll see if he accepts the deal as a result of that trade-off.
You know, and General, you just mentioned there the plummeting reputation of Israel. We did see last week on Friday numerous UN delegates walk out of Netanyahu's speech in protest of what they call, you know, in no uncertain terms, genocide in Gaza. Is the White House paying enough attention to what is happening right now inside of Gaza?
Nicole, clearly that they are, because they have brought Netanyahu in and are using the pressure of the president of the United States to convince him to accept some of these otherwise unsavory portions of the deal. I think it's interesting that while many of those leaders walked out of what was a defiant speech from the prime minister on Friday, they actually walked into a meeting with the president of the United States, who is, again, expending this political capital to socialize what he believes is the right mix of elements to get to a deal. And I think that the prime minister will have been socialized significantly by Kushner and Witkoff yesterday to understand what's coming, and hopefully he'll realize it's in his best interest to accept this deal.
All right, so this is kind of a multi-pronged question here. First of all, do you think a ceasefire proposal comes out of this meeting today? Does it happen? If it does it ultimately matter? Because what is it going to take to get Hamas on board?
Nicole, great questions. And the first point is, I believe the answer is yes. As long as there is some level of assurance from the Arab and Muslim leaders that that will correspond with getting all of the hostages back immediately, which leads me to the answer to the second point, which is this, that while Hamas may be waffling in whether they accept a deal like this or not, if President Trump did the socializing and the coordinating, as I suspect he did last week, then every possible supporter of Hamas, every Arab neighbor, every Muslim country has already signed on to this deal and will use the totality of their pressure points against Hamas to get them to accept the deal as well.
You know, and General, my last question for you. We know Hamas is certainly not afraid, has no qualms about using Palestinian people as collateral damage. You know, this war has continued to rage on. What do you think a post-war Gaza is going to look like? Because it will end at some point.
It will, Nicole, and you're right about Hamas. They're the ones that started this. They're the ones that have used a strategy that maximizes Palestinian suffering throughout the conflict. But what that 21-point plan very clearly specifies is a large responsibility of the Palestinian Authority and the Arab neighbors of Gaza and Israel to be the governing force and the security force in Gaza. And if there's any hope to accept the 21-point plan and to see a lasting, sustainable peace in Gaza that's productive for both the Palestinians and Israel, then it's going to fall on the shoulders of the Palestinian Authority and the Arab neighbors of Israel to govern and to maintain the peace in Gaza.
Brigadier General Teichert, thank you, as always.
Thanks, Nicole.
After the break,